welcome along to episode 21 we are at of series 2 of the Actors Toolkit podcast. Today we are joined by someone who needs no introduction. It's the lovely Marta Svetek. We're going to introduce you anyway. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
We're
Uh,
delighted to have
I'm
you.
very excited to share what I know and answer some questions.
We're
Hopefully
excited.
useful answers.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So do you want to, for people that don't know, whoever is left that doesn't know who Marta Svetek who is Marta Svetek?
Whoever has not been swept up in my bid for world domination. Yeah, so hi, I'm Marta Svetek. I'm an actor. I primarily work in video games. So if you have heard of me, that's probably where you heard of me. So both voice acting and motion capture, but I've also done screen work, immersive theater, whatever really excites me. And yeah, I'm originally from Slovenia, picked up this weird accent, and I kind of decided one day I'm gonna try this acting thing, and it's been pretty good ever since.
And for those that don't know, as well as running the Odair Academy, I'm also an agent. I run Odair Talent Management, and Marta is one of my clients. And
Yeah.
Marta was one of the sort of success stories that I really like, whereby she came to the agency and said, "I want to do X, Y, and Z, make that happen," and we were able to make it happen, which is great.
Yeah,
So,
because
which
Jamie makes things happen.
Jamie tries to make things happen, and occasionally they come off, and he uses them over and over again to make himself look good. However,
Yeah, there you
that's
go.
where we're at. But you did. You came to us. So you knew exactly what you want, what you wanted, and where you wanted to get to, which I think is important as an actor. So, of the jobs you've done to date, what's been your favorite?
Oh, it's hard for me to pick a favorite. I think well, my first lead in a movie, sort of co-lead, was I Am Rage. That was one of my favorite jobs because it was such an amazing cast and crew, and we really came together to make something that I think is really fun, a really fun action movie. We did all of our own stunts as you would in sort of these lower budget movies, but learned so much, and I think we made something we could be proud of. So that's my favorite, like, yeah, project of that kind. And then I think a close second is Battlefield, because I am a huge Battlefield fan. That's a video game franchise for the non-gamers out there that started sort of in the, I think, late 90s, very early 2000s with Battlefield 1942. And I didn't find out. That was hilarious because I was texting Jamie about this at the time. We had no idea. We thought generic military audition. All right, I do like 10 of these a week. Like, okay, I'll do the thing. And then I booked the job and I still don't know what the game is. I went into the studio to record it. They're like, hey, let's just hear the audition back. I'm like, guys, what what are we doing here? What's the game? At least like, give me something to work with. And like, oh yeah, it's Battlefield. So yeah, so Battlefield 2042. I
And
that
that
was
was
a
one of those
special
jobs.
one.
Yeah, that was one of those jobs you said to me, well, one of those companies anyway, where you said, "I want to work with them,"
Yeah,
and we managed to make it happen just through tenacity. That's all it
yeah.
takes.
Just gotta keep at
Obviously,
it.
you're well known for Battlefield, but you're also best known, which you've got a bit of a cult following for playing Roxanne Wolf in Five Nights at Freddy's. How did
Yes.
that job kind of change your trajectory?
I mean, it wasn't even Roxanne Wolf. It's three characters, which was extra scary. Roxanne Wolf, actually the player character as well, Gregory, which is a 9-year-old boy, 10-year-old boy, and Vanny, which is the main antagonist. And so I was chasing myself the entire game. It was great. And all these three characters interact. So trying to make three different voices that don't sound like the same person voiced them was a really cool challenge. But I mean that really changed everything because it it is the part of my work that's been the most noticed. And it was something that you don't, even though your work as an actor can really affect people, unless those people tell you that it affected them, you don't know. You just hope you did something that meant something to someone. I think that's one of the biggest sort of aspirations of your work as an actor, that you can produce something that really reached somebody. And Five Nights at Freddy's was the first time where, I got that feedback directly and from many, many people. And it was a very special experience because not only did I get to interact, and the community wanted to interact with me, and I got all this amazing love. It was also a really interesting lesson in, I guess, PR, your personal PR, how you present yourself. Now, luckily, I've got a marketing background, and I thought I was quite well media trained beforehand, just from non-acting work. But there are definitely certain things I wasn't ready for, and it also helps you build a thicker skin to your critics, because as much love as you get for your work, you're gonna get it's almost like an equal opposite reaction from some people. Some people make it their thing to then hate you, even though you're not your character, this is your performance, but it becomes very personal very quickly. So that side of things was really eye-opening, and regardless of the little negative blips, I am immensely grateful for this like incredibly welcoming and wonderful community that just helps me every day. And then on the other hand, it changed how I guess my peers perceived me, because all of a sudden I was in something that they knew had a big following, that was sort of seen as, I hate saying this, but seen as important, because I think all of our work is important. But there's work you think is important, then there's work that the general, industry think is important. And that I was not entirely ready for, that all of a sudden that the perception of me as a professional in the industry had shifted significantly, and all of a sudden I'm being invited to all these things and all these different interviews, and speaking to things. But it was bizarre, like people who I immensely looked up to, like, I don't know, Doug Cockle, the voice of Geralt of Rivia in the Witcher video game series, is just came up to me, and referred to me as like, yeah, like, we're in this space together. Whereas I'm like, ah, oh my God, it's Geralt. Um, yeah, so that side of things was also interesting to see. And I guess I'll add one more thing, which is why it's so special to me, because I didn't come into acting the traditional way, at least not for the UK. I moved to London pursuing my business ambitions. I went to business school. I didn't go to drama school, didn't go to any kind of acting school. I acted for fun, and I went to, I went to London to pursue sort of more parent approved careers. Got into technology, which is still a big part of my life. Got into that industry, the startups, went through the crucible of startups, learned so much, like so many things that I still use as an actor today. And then through that, through serendipity, got into acting, voice acting, thing that I could never leave alone. And so I was always perceived as less than when I started this journey, because I decided I was going to start this journey and I'm going to see what happens, but I do have something else to do, so I'm going to do this my way or not at all. And in a way, that's really worked for me. Like, nobody was going to push me around and make me do what I didn't want to do. If I
Yeah,
didn't want to do it,
and that's
stopped.
important as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but whenever I walked into any room for any training, I started just taking lots of workshops, courses, classes, anything I could, but I was working full time, so I could only do so much. And I would walk in and I'd be like, oh yeah, she's just a social media manager. Oh, she's just this. Oh, she's just that. Like, it was incredibly dismissive. Um, and then suddenly I get Battlefield, I get Five Nights at Freddy's, a few other projects, like Destiny 2, things like that. And, people change their tune. And so to get this acceptance and validation, not that I needed it to keep going. I didn't really care all that much, but it almost took me, no, almost, it did take me by surprise to suddenly be seen as somebody, you know, worth paying attention to, or worth, like,
Somebody of
being
value.
seen as an actor.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And obviously, it's opened up different aspects of your career, in that you now need to attend Comic Cons and do streams and cameos and
Yes,
things
it's
like
such a
that.
burden. I need
Such
to
a
attend
burden.
the burden.
Well, how's that been? Because obviously, I know as your agent, you've been traveling all over the world, going to these Comic Cons and things like that. How's that been?
Yeah, it's been incredible. Again, like I said, the communities have been so wonderful to me. Um, that being able to go out to, like MCM Comic Con and meet them in person, be able to in some way give something back for all the love and the appreciation they express for my work it means a lot. It also means a lot to them, to sort of have that interaction and maybe hear the voice in real life, anything like that. It's it's sometimes overwhelming as well. Conventions are very intense.
I was away to say when you have fans coming up in costumes that they've spent weeks and weeks and weeks making of the characters that you're playing,
Yeah.
it can be overwhelming.
How do you express your gratitude for that? Like, how do you even to me, I can't express sufficient appreciation for somebody having done that. You know what I mean? So I feel this weird guilt at Comic Cons because it's also everything's so fast tracked. So they come in, excuse me, they come in and they show off this thing they've been working on sometimes for a year, and they want something signed, a picture, whatever it is, and then they're ushered away because the next person's already there, and you're like, but I I want to appreciate, know that I'm appreciating. And so there is that intensity, and honestly, when you're like doing that for 3 days straight, you're a bit like, okay, I'm gonna need to sit down for a second. You're
Yeah.
completely spent. But you know what, my Five Nights at Freddy's co-star Kellen Goff, he does so many conventions over in the US, like almost one every weekend or every other weekend. I don't know how he does it. It's intense because you also
Yeah.
have interviews there, stage interviews and photo sessions and all that. So yeah, it is a lot, but I'm happy to, do as many as possible to just meet everybody that I can.
And you're also very good at that side of it. Myself and you were on a panel at Get Your Game On a couple of weeks
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
which was great. But of all the actors that I represent, you're definitely one of the best at networking. So, what tips would you give to actors who, like myself, when I was an actor, are just rubbish at networking?
First of all, I don't believe for a second you were not good at networking. But
Well, I think I maybe just hated it more than
yeah,
being.
maybe you just didn't like it. It,
Yeah.
it can be a real slog. My first biggest rule with networking is make friends. You're not going in there for a job. You're not going to that event to get hired. You're going to that event to just meet people and make friends. Because you when somebody first meets you, you meet somebody for the first time, and that person is immediately say, "Hi, I'm this, and this," immediately asking something of you. And asking somebody for a job or a recommendation, whatever it is no small ask, because you're asking that person to put their professional to involve their professional reputation in this task. That is a serious ask of somebody. And even if they do, think you're a fantastic actor, maybe they've already heard of you and seen some of your work, maybe they've gone to your showcase. If that person doesn't have a project that you fit at this point in time, they're still going to have to say no to you. Now, you're not going to feel great about that, and they're not going to feel great about that. So you've just had an interaction, but really nobody's feeling great about it. It just, you're sowing the wrong seeds at that point. And when I say go out and make friends, it doesn't mean that now everybody you've decided you're going to meet is going to have to be your friend. Sometimes you just have to let it go and be like, I have people in the industry where I very much feel like our relationship is live and let live. You know what? We don't have the chemistry. Well, probably not going to work together. And that's okay because the industry's big enough for all of us. There's enough projects to go around.
And you can
So,
go too far the other way. I know as an
yeah.
agent, at these networking events or events that I'm at, you do sometimes get actors who are too over friendly, and you do go, this is just awkward.
Yeah, exactly. So just go in to meet people. Don't go in to say, I need to book something from this. I just basically I go in and I'm like, oh hi, and I talk, I ask them about their interests. And yes, I weave in like I don't get a hi, I'm an actor. I weave it into it later because I'm not going into this conversation talking about myself. I go in and ask them, very often if there is somebody specific that I go to this event to meet, like for example, I will go to an event to meet Tom Keegan or Andrea Toyas or whoever else. Then I will do my homework and I will look them up on LinkedIn and I will see what they like or IMDb or whatever it is, see what they're working on, see, just do a little bit of like a non-creepy level of like Googling and see what they're interested in. And then maybe I can mention that when we're speaking, maybe we have some common interests. I don't go like something else that I don't like at all just so they'll like me. That will never work long term. But get to know what matters to this person and just have a conversation. Make sure you exchange some kind of contact, maybe social media, whatever else. Especially if it's an email, make sure you follow up with just a nice email. Say, "Hi, it was amazing to meet you last night. If you ever need anything, these are my contact details. Have a great weekend." And
And
I
that's
just leave it alone.
preparation is key. I mean, it's the
Yeah,
old adage, fail to prepare to fail.
yeah,
You need to do your research before.
yeah,
But even just on little things, we do a lot of casting workshops through the academy, and you have so many actors saying, oh, I've done so many of these, I'm not going to learn anything. And it's like, well, think about the other reasons that you're doing them. You're not going in to learn, necessarily. You're maybe
yeah,
just going in there to meet the casting
yeah.
director, to something as small as knowing what they look like, so that when you're at these events, you can spot them in a crowd and go, I know what they look like because
Yeah.
I met them on this workshop, and you're instantly talking to the right person.
It also works the other way around because when you submit then us to that casting director, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I've met her, I've seen her. Yeah, okay, no, she could really be good for that." Or they could say, "Actually, not this time, but they will remember you." The other thing is, like, I really want to emphasize before I wrap up my really long answer, is let go. Get good at letting go. Let it be. You go have the interaction. Let it be. Let it breathe. That person will reach out to you when they're ready to reach out to you. Okay? You did your thing. They know you exist. That's all that needs to happen at this point. Just step back, sit back and let it be because I've for example done that with the animation director at Tindalos Interactive, which is an independent French game studio. And that was back in 2018. I believe I met him at Animex. I went to this animation and video game conference in Middlesbrough, organized with Middlesbrough University, who has a big video game department. And 2 years later, I get a Facebook message. I'm like, I can't. Who's this? I can't remember. I recognize the name. Can't even. I was like, oh right, yeah, Richard. And then next thing I know, I'm on the Eurostar in the middle of the pandemic in 2020, August 2020. I'm on the Eurostar going to Paris for a mocap shoot. But I let it be. Let like have real connections, not forced connections. Your job at networking events is to let people know you exist, not to book the job. The job will come when you're right for it. They just need to know you exist, and then that comes to fruition whenever it does. That's not in your control. You let them do their job and feel like they're not being hassled.
Yeah, that is great. Like I say, I know as an agent, I've had actors following me around all day at these events, and you're thinking, yeah, okay, we've spoken. There's no need for this.
Yeah.
But then I suppose that can be an inexperienced thing. Networking is a skill. Doing it properly is a skill, and it's something that you need to learn, and you can only learn by repetition, going to
Yeah.
as many events as possible. One good example that I think a lot of actors miss is film festivals.
Yeah.
Go to a film festival, find out whose films are on there, research the directors, watch their other films so you can get an idea of the style. Then you've got something to talk about. Write to them in advance and say, look, I'm going to be there. I want to buy you a coffee. I want to,
Yeah.
meet up if you've got a spare 5 minutes. The coffee's on me. These are the preparation is key.
Yeah, and if you apply for the basic festival accreditation, which you will be able to get as an actor at most festivals. I was just at the Berlin Film Festival in February, and I was only there for 48 hours. That's all I could spare between different work commitments. Yeah, they basically release to people who have the festival accreditation. They release the whole attendee contact list. So you can get that's like a month before it starts. And so you can get in touch with all those people. There's also like networks like I know for European film festivals, especially for women, you've got the European Women's Network, and a few other things where you can actually reach out to them directly. Make sure you look up uh, different networks that are relevant to what you're trying to do. Naturally, film festivals are going to be more geared towards filmmakers than actors, so you're going to be having a little bit of an uphill battle. But if you're smart about it and you're tactical about it, and I would say even it's not about the amount of time you spend there, it's how you spend it. So you can make 48 hours work really well. And I decided, okay, I'm only paying for 2 nights of a hotel. I'm going to be at the hotel that is in the middle of everything.
Mm.
Maybe sometimes that's better than spending, you know, 10 days around Cannes and not that that's a hardship, but you know what I mean.
These in the south of France is not a hardship for
Yeah.
most actors, no.
Uh,
But you're right, know why you're there.
exactly. And so be prepared, make friends, let go, and be kind to yourself. Because even now, and I feel like I'm quite experienced in networking, I still have interactions that are like, oh my God, what did I say? What did I do? I didn't really need to do that. That was just, ugh. Um, it happens. It happens all the time. You're just trying to meet people and seeing what sticks,
Yeah,
you
and
know?
remember, the people you're talking to know that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And you don't need everybody to like you. I know as actors, we want everybody to like us. You don't need it. You don't need everybody to like you. If somebody decides, absolutely not, just let it be. Don't take it personally. Just be like, okay, live and let live.
It's show business, not show friends.
Yeah. And then again, still make friends.
Well, you can still make friends, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, so I'm a young, inexperienced actor, and I want to get into the voice. I want to get into the world of voiceover. Where do I start?
It's tricky. Because I started in 2017. Even since then, the landscape has changed a lot. I'm gonna say the dreaded word AI is a big deal. And really the space is more competitive after the pandemic than it has ever been. So I'm going to start with that, just baseline, just so you
Do
know that you,
you, do you think that's partly because of the remote nature of some of it?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Imagine all the people that all the musical theater people who were too busy doing musical theater to bother with voiceover. They're like, That's nice, but," and all of a sudden that was their best and usually only source of income for at least some period of time. People with amazing voices and really good ability to act all of a sudden now have the same at home setups as the rest of us. So that that has changed the landscape a lot. At the same time, there's also a plus, which is a lot of companies during the pandemic became a lot more comfortable with casting internationally, especially the US ones that used to be very much, no, 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 we need the talent in house and studio physically. They're now much more open to remote casting. But I do want to point that out, that if you decide to go into voiceover, it is a tough time to break in as a new voice, but it is doable. In the UK specifically, I would recommend joining a network. Now, I'm part of the voiceover network. There's also Gravy for the Brain. There's a few other ones, but there's no better place where you can explore and find the part of voiceover that you want to do, because you can't have a voice reel. That doesn't work. For voiceover, every single genre of voiceover: corporate, video games, animation, audio drama, narration, audiobooks, those are all individual streams that people specialize in. For me, it's video games. I also do corporate. I did an audiobook. I'm probably not going to do it again. It's not really my cup of tea.
It's a long slog in audiobook.
Yeah, you have to love that, because you have a lot of prep, and I'm terribly impatient. um, but you will want to train up your technique for every one of these. And if somebody's casting for a commercial, they don't want to hear your audiobook reel.
Mm.
They don't want to hear your video game reel. They want to hear your commercial reel. So be prepared that you're going to have to, explore what works for you, what you're best suited to, and then train up to get really good in the technique for that. And then you're going to also be looking at networking for that. So somebody that wants to do audiobooks, I'm not going to tell them to go to get your game on. you know, it'd be a waste of time. It doesn't mean you have to do just the one, but know what you're going to do. Train up for it, get a reel for that. And yeah, so these networks can be really good at providing the training. Very often in voiceover, the saving grace is that you're going to be doing 1 to 3 days max for any one training course, whatever it is. You can have longer courses, you like once a week you meet. But generally, like, it's not as big a time commitment as it is for like normal drama training. Yeah, and just, yeah, you're gonna have to like figure it out step by step. And then obviously networks also connect you to casting people, to fellow professionals. You get to make friends, and usually you're invited to pretty cool events and things like that. So that is for the UK. I'm not sure how it is in continental Europe, because I know that the listeners are quite international for this podcast. For the US, there are some critical differences. Most people in the US are expected to sign up with a coach. Again, you're going to be exploring what you want to do in voiceover, but very often that's done with a coach. And it's a slightly bigger financial commitment than in Europe. There's also people who do it themselves, but it's definitely faster with a coach. And then that coach will bring you up to a point where they say, okay, you're ready to do your first reel. I think in Europe, people are a lot more forgiving about the quality of reels in terms of like the polish of your performances. So I sort of cut my first reel probably a little too soon, but still quite early on. Wanted to get working, wanted to get out there. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. And then every year I'd cut a new reel. Obviously now I'm quite happy with my current reel, so I'm letting that be, but as long as it is reflective of my ability.
Just while we're touching on reels, what do you think makes a good reel? What sort of aspects, i.e. length, how many different clips should you have? Should you be trying different accents? What kind of things
Yeah.
make a good reel for video games, for example?
For video games, yeah, because there's different demands for the different subgenres, and generally you do not want it to be longer than 2 minutes. Nobody's going to listen to anything longer. Just putting it out there, just not. Put your best, strongest stuff first. Absolutely. People keep forgetting that. Know yourself. This works for pretty much everything to do with acting, but self-awareness is critical. So what is it that you find it the easiest to do well? That's probably going to be your strongest thing, and that's probably what you're going to do first in your natural voice, natural accent, ideally, so that the very first clip they get an idea of who you vocally are. And then you can start drifting further and further and further away from like your most comfortable characters. Obviously, every single character needs to be complete, needs to be something that you are comfortable doing for an extended period of time, emoting fully. So don't pick an accent that you can do a few sentences in as a bit. If you can't act consistently, like how many Scottish accents have you heard, Jamie? Where
Too,
somebody can do one sentence, maybe one word, and
too
then the
many.
rest of it is butchering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
too many, and especially for accents maybe not Scottish but are so well known. It's it's standard American or Southern American. I know as a Scottish person, well, as soon as I hear someone that's not Scottish trying to do a Scottish accent, I can tell straight away. And if you're aiming yourself at a market like the American market, they will know.
Yep. They will know. And so don't think you're fooling anybody. And that doesn't mean that uh, if you can do it doesn't mean you have to have 50,000 accents. There's plenty of actors that can maybe do two. And that's fine because acting is more than your accent, you know? So get those characters in. And some people don't have the biggest vocal range. That's okay. Your ability to act and to do different characters is not defined by how high and how low you can go. It is the character creation. So put the stuff that you're best in, your natural voice, your accent, all this stuff, put it up front. Then explore more. If you don't have enough strong performances to fill 2 minutes, don't fill 2 minutes. A strong minute and 15 seconds is a lot more powerful and a lot more valuable than a 2 minute reel that just falls off a cliff after the first 30 seconds. You know what I mean? Even I would rather have, if you're not ready yet, I would rather have you record yourself doing clips of the stuff that you're good at and just having the individual clips live online so people can reference them. That is a better option than you cutting together a reel that's not really that good. Like that's not stuff that you are at the moment good at. And if you know you're not good at something but you want to be, then you just put in the work and get good. But yes, back to like doing stuff in the US, a lot of people will go through coaches. The coach will say, okay, now you're ready to cut the reel. You're going to record the reel with them. They're going to produce it for you. They're going to help source all the text and everything and usually mix it and you will get the finished product. Um, and then again, it's just going to networking events in your area or even traveling to big hubs like Los Angeles for specific things. Like you've got the Voice Arts Awards in December usually, where everybody's in town. So even if you're not going to the Voice Arts Awards, you've got That's Voiceover uh, um, event that happens the day before the Voice Arts Awards. You've got a lot of different things. I know the Voiceover Network also does Get Your Game On in November in Los Angeles. Yeah, so there's a lot of different things. It's just that there's a critical difference there that people generally kind of almost have to go through a coach in some ways in the US to then be considered for certain projects and certain things. I hope that's changing because I don't entirely agree with that system. I don't think it's fair to actors, but that's how it is at the moment.
So we touched on a couple of them already, with regards to AI and with regards to how many actors are in the business now. But what do you think are the biggest threats that the voiceover industry is facing at the moment?
AI, I think, is kind of something that highlighted a lot of holes in the ship that is the voiceover industry. I don't think AI is the thing that poked those holes. I think just said they're there.
Well,
Um, it's really sort of this, I guess,
I suppose,
neglect.
I suppose, sorry, just to cut in there, just for
Yeah.
our listeners who maybe don't know, what is AI?
Oh, yeah. Well, AI or artificial intelligence is a bit of a misnomer. I'm going to be that person to say it. This is my technology background coming in. It is sort of I would almost call it a marketing term for machine learning, specifically usually to do with generative uh, AI, guess, generative AI, generative technologies as such, that basically create they can take a lot of information, for example, a lot of voice recordings or a lot of pictures, a lot of videos, and I'm talking millions, and process all of that information and start generating its own unique version of that based on a prompt. So I can tell, I can feed it a lot of videos of you, Jamie, and be like, okay, now make a video of, I don't know, Jamie's smoking a cigarette. And it will create something that was not you. You never did this particular like video, but it'll create something that actually realistically presents you to, or saying something. There's a lot of AI clones of my performance at Five Nights at Freddy's all over TikTok, everywhere. It is everywhere, and they're doing like, oh, Roxanne Wolf sings this song, and or I saw a video where somebody was making Roxanne Wolf say really bad things, and I'm like, that's my voice, but I've never said that, and it's really risky because then people are starting to get wise about recognizing AI generated stuff versus real stuff. So we're
Especially,
a long way away.
especially within images.
Yeah.
You can see that a mile off which ones are AI generated and which ones aren't.
Yeah. Well, I think we're getting a little cocky and
I
saying
was going
we
to say
know
right now
because
we can see
yeah, because but also very often you've probably seen a lot of images that were AI generated. You had no idea they were.
there's the
That's
classic
the scary part.
there's the classic Will Smith eating the spaghetti. When you look at there was an AI generated video of Will Smith eating some
Yeah.
spaghetti for a bowl, and when you looked at it in 2018, the quality you could tell straight away it was
Yeah.
computer generated. It didn't look like Will Smith.
Yeah.
It was just a representation, and then they redid it in 2023, and you cannot tell the difference.
It's terrifying. And so there is the biggest threat is that, in my opinion, is the lack of legislation that gives us ownership of our voices. We currently don't own our voices. And I think it is not just a, you know, creative industry threat. I think it's a threat to personal identity. Because we use our voices sometimes for biometric security, things like that. I think that there is a lack of legislation. I think there's also AI showed the general neglect towards voice acting, voiceover in general, that has been happening from not just not equity, but also SAG-AFTRA. Like everybody, even there's a lot of stuff in place that was negotiated decades ago for film and TV. For voice, not so much.
Mhm.
And we don't have these protections. And that's why, voice is one of the biggest first frontiers for this in the creative industries alongside imagery, um, which has its own protections, but i- it's so easy to spoof and utilize. And I'm not going to go down that route because we're going to spend another hour talking about something that's not about acting. Um, it's that's one of the reasons why one of the early battlegrounds is here. Um, and I think the finally the threat is a threat that's always been there. It's complacency, you know, a complacency from us. And I will go on the mini rant that you already heard, Jamie, at Get Your Game On, which is you are responsible for your own career. Nobody else. You are the first on that list. And so if you are not reading those contracts, if you are not thinking about the bigger picture of you being involved in a certain project, if you're just going like, yeah, I'm just gonna go record this, it's a paycheck, yeah, just treating them as individual paychecks, um, very like almost it's going to be almost certain that you're going to sign something that you shouldn't have. And then you can't be like, well, my agent did, Jimmy, why didn't you tell me? It's my responsibility to read the thing before I sign it. And to have these conversations with your colleagues about what we actually want to do, to engage with your union about what you want to achieve. And no, it's not going to be stuff that's going to happen overnight, but that complacency needs to be addressed. And the complacency, I also think, falls into people that take a lot of jobs continuously for lower rates, that undercut the industry because that's the way they're going to get the job, and they continuously take lower paying jobs. It's it's not setting up anybody for success. It's not. So yeah, we need to be more engaged in how we're treated, how in a positive way, not in a, oh, accusatory, you did this to us. Like, okay, well, that happened. How can we do better going forward? How can we have a more positive relationship with the people that we work with each other? How can we have the important conversations that actually action something? um I think that's the threat of us not doing that, because you have people like Sissy Jones over in the US and NAVA, the North American Voiceover Association. They only started, what, 2 years ago? And they've just been at the White House getting bipartisan support for a new bill that allows a new definition of how people, how artists own their voices and what rights voice performers can have. You don't see that here. You don't see that in the UK. We're just kind of at each other's throats sometimes and be like, "Oh, but that one took that rate, and that one took that rate." We need to do better.
Yeah,
And
well,
same for film and TV, quite frankly.
it is. It is. And asking if you don't know is a massive
Yeah,
part of it, as well. But I mean, we touched on obviously the fact that I'm your agent, but one thing I did want to touch on before we finish is a question that we get all the time. As obviously as your agent, I know you have a couple of other agents, and you have a voice agent, you have an American manager, these kind of things. How do you navigate working alongside multiple agents? We get this question a lot at the
yeah.
academy. I'm looking to take on a second agent, or I'm looking to take on a commercial agent, or a voice agent, or a manager. How do you navigate working that way? I know the answer, obviously, but
Yeah.
for our listeners.
So going back to the statement is that I'm responsible for my career. And a little bit further back when I said I have a business background, um, business technology, whatever. I treat my acting career as my business, and I am the CEO. That means the final responsibility for everything falls to me. And so whoever I hope to decide to work with, you are part of my team. And I think by seeing it that way, so seeing an agent as part of my team, and as I see agents very much as a part of the sales team for me, of Marta,
And the legal team as well.
and the legal team. Yes, so there are different areas. Let's say for simplicity of the argument, let's say sales team. Uh, it's is then basically my responsibility to delineate, to first of all clearly communicate my intent for where I want my business to go. So I need to communicate to you. That is my job, to communicate to you what I want to achieve. And then we work together and we figure out how to get there. It's also my responsibility to get you what you need to successfully put me in front of the right people. So I'm constantly trying to get myself out there. I'm not saying like, Jamie, get me out there. I get myself out there. I try to meet people so that by the time you're talking to them, they know who you're talking about. I try to get you new reels, new headshots, new material, new scenes, whatever it is that can add to the portfolio that you can just grab at the right moment and give that to the person. Um, and when it's multiple agents, I think just making the clear lines and making sure that everybody's met.
I was
You
just about to say
cannot keep
communication. I
people
know all your
separate.
agents. I've met them before, and
Yes.
we work in a way that we all understand our role and our part in the process.
Yes.
Marta.
And those conversations aren't always comfortable. You know, you have to be prepared to have those conversations to say, is this okay? Before you sign any contracts, I've always come to you and said, before I signed any contracts, to say, hey, I'm thinking of this. I would like to do this. And we talk about it. I also, that way we can also make sure that I'm not in breach of any contracts I've already signed. Um, so you have to have the two agents meet. I think that people are afraid because I've heard a lot of these situations where an original agent might have a really bad attitude towards having a separate agent for something else. I believe in having multiple agents personally because I think it in today's day and age, when you have a really very varied portfolio, it's too much for any one person to push you for everything all the time.
And if you're
Might
running
as well
your own
be.
company, you don't want two members of your team that are exactly the same, have the same skill set.
Yeah, and if you're you know, uh, you'd be just dedicated to me and only me if you were to like push me for everything ever. It just doesn't work that way. And it's also, different agents have different contacts, different specialisms, different things that might work for one thing but not another. Um it's it's important, yeah, to have communication if you're and if you find yourself in the situation where the original agent is being really unprofessional or trying to make you feel bad, trying to emotionally manipulate you, anything along those lines that is not a calm professional conversation that talks about contractual obligations, if it gets emotional, honestly, I would have a serious think to myself whether this is the right agent for me.
Correct.
Because
Yeah.
whoever you have representing you, it's incredibly important that this person, I know that Jamie, you're impeccable in this. It's incredibly important this person presents themselves in a professional way. That this person is professional in how they conduct the business of being an agent. And if they speak to you like that, how are they speaking to somebody else, like another client that is, maybe being difficult? And who has ever heard of a client being difficult? Oh my God, so rare. Um, I think you need to be judicious in who you have representing you, no matter where you are in the journey. It's like, oh yeah, but I can do, oh, but I just need an agent and then everything will be okay. Actually, no, first 4 years of my career, the first 3 years of my career, I didn't have an agent. Not because nobody wanted to sign me, because I didn't meet anybody that I wanted to sign with. Because like you don't conduct yourself in a way that I want associated with my name.
And the whole reason we set up the agency was because of that, because our
Yeah.
previous agent was so bad.
Yeah. You have options. As an actor, you have options and me saying you're responsible for your career means you have the power to do something about it. You have the power to choose the people that you're happy working with. And if they're not ready to choose you, then that's okay. You can go on by yourself through networking and through the internet until you find somebody that is the right fit. But don't stay with an agent just because you're afraid of not having an agent, because those people can do real damage to you. So, yeah, to your entire career.
100% right. And I totally agree with everything you've just said.
Yeah.
Marta, one more question before we finish. It's the same question we ask to everybody on the podcast. If you could change one thing about the industry, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a big question.
That's a question, and every time we get it, that's the answer.
um, I would love the industry to be less obsessed with looks. I think that would be really useful. And I think we've gone a long way to actually do that. And by looks, I mean with like a cookie cutter, whatever, must be pretty. And I think the UK specifically has done a lot in pushing casting that is more real. that goes away from that sort of quote unquote American exceptionalism where everybody's stunning and the police officer is wearing 6-inch Manolo Blahniks and running faster than the guy in Nikes. Still tackling to the ground, getting up with perfect hair and not a scuff mark on her jacket. Um, yeah, I think I would love for the industry generally to be less obsessed with looks and more obsessed with artistry.
Fantastic. Wouldn't we all? That's a cracking answer.
Mm.
Brilliant. Marta, it's been an absolute pleasure, as it always is,
Yeah.
to talk to you. I think we've just come up to an hour. I could sit and talk to you for hours, but
Likewise.
we don't unfortunately have the time. But thank you very much for joining us on the podcast, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Yeah, speak soon. Thank you. Bye.